Well, a very good morning to you once again, and we are coming to you live from Durban. We've been in discussion with the leaders of political parties. We'll be discussing political killings in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, and we've had parties here. We've had the ANC, the IFP, the Democratic Alliance, the NFP, as well as the SACP leaders sharing their insight into the political killings, and also suggestions on how, as the NFP and the IFP have said, how they have been able to resolve some of the tensions that existed between those two parties. We're going to continue with that as we wrap up shortly our discussion, but I'm just going to quickly speak to the ANC, Mtumseni Ntuli. Just a question, aside from our discussion here, Mtumseni, of course, that we're also knowing that as the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal, you're awaiting a decision on whether or not you will appeal the recent High Court ruling. Has it been a decision? Your National Working Committee was meeting. Has it been a decision?
Well, the matter, as you correctly said, is now before the national leadership of the ANC. We were all waiting with intense expectations that yesterday the National Working Committee is going to convene and reflect on this matter so that we can get a conclusion. We are told that, reliably informed, that the working committee did not take place yesterday. But obviously tomorrow is a standing meeting of the National Executive Committee, because remember the one that was last week was a special meeting convened to deal with the KZN question. Our view is that it's not too late. The NEC is going to convene tomorrow. And as we said before, we are Democrats and we believe in the supremacy of the National Executive Committee. Its decisions and its authority is what we are going to be implementing competently. Whatever the NEC decides will be our own decision, and we'll implement it as if it was conceptualized and decided by ourselves.
Right, thanks very much for that update. To just hold the mic, to come back to our discussion, we are wrapping up now, and I think Mtumseni and ourselves as the leaders here, solutions. The communities out there want to find, what are you as leaders going to do? What is the commitment to your supporters, to the people of KwaZulu-Natal? I'm going to give you all 30 seconds. I'm starting with you, Mtumseni. Please wrap.
Well, I think the undertaking on the part of the African National Congress, firstly, is that we want to encourage all our people to come before the Commission of Inquiry. We also want them, those who are comfortable, to talk to some of our leaders in the African National Congress or various sectors of society to indicate we are not in denial. If the problem is originating inside the African National Congress, we are committed to deal with it. That is why we have established a task team that is engaging with our structures and society in general in an effort to have a deeper understanding of the problem we're facing. And as the ANC, our view and our hopes is that the law enforcement agencies must be supported. The Commission of Inquiry must also be supported. We are also going to appear before the Commission of Inquiry, I think in the next week or two, and express our own view about how we see things evolving in our province.
Your time is up, Mtumseni. Mr. Mazibuko, the IFP, 30 seconds, your last comments?
Well, moving from the premise or assumption that the problems as we see them now are intra-party in nature, it takes all factions, all leaders of factions must ensure that they publicly show their supporters that they are one organization. Two, they must not tolerate any form of denigration, whether in song or in whatever form, of an opposition leader within the organization, or any leader for that matter. They must stamp out any form of denigration and casting aspersions on other people. Three, we must allow the Morani Commission to come out with its conclusions, and then we must be able to implement those. Lastly, let us, the law enforcement agencies must up a gear, because it doesn't help if there will be recommendations, people kill others, but there are no arrests. And even if there are arrests, people don't get convicted, you see. I think that is what we need to do.
So again?
I think mainly important is, again, issue of all of us as leaders. We must work together and fight against corruption. And also, entrepreneurs who are behind the scenes because the issue here is it's around the fact that some politicians go and tell entrepreneurs so and so is standing on your way to get this tender. That's a reality we must face, and I think all of us here as leaders, we must acknowledge that's a fact, and we must also call entrepreneurs to step aside and allow politicians to run municipalities, to run government institutions, and not get influencing us in terms of who should get tenders. Because as politicians, we shouldn't get involved in tenders anyway. But end of the day, all of us here as leaders, we must acknowledge the fact there's corruption, and we must accept that corruption is a cause of many of killings in this province.
Professor Kubisa.
Yes, and I think within parties themselves, channels for dialogue must be opened. Parties must be able to talk. Parties have got constitutions, have got policies. They must open up, negotiate, and solve the issues and deal with conflicts internally. Secondly, we must not undermine the importance of the local community. Local community must come out because there is a criminal element within the whole thing. They must come out and be able to show the people that are fomenting the flames of violence within their communities. Then thirdly, law enforcement agencies must do their work. They must arrest, prosecute immediately. The Morana Commission must be given space, and we must implement the findings of it. Let's deal with corruption and the whole issue of Koreanism that has taken shape within politics. These are the main issues that we must deal with.
Professor, thank you very much. And lastly, Rep. Mr. Mthembu, SACP.
What we need to do immediately, first of all, is start with us as leaders. That we need to correct how do we relate to each other, because any tensions that the people see at the top, they will it will manifest itself on the ground. That is what we need to do. We need to come up with workable strategies to address the issue of unemployment, poverty, and inequality. Because there is a correlation between the deterioration of a system on the ground and the economy. So we need to come up with a workable situation to increase economic growth so that we are addressing the plight of the people on the ground.
Right.
And we need to get rid of the tender system.
All right, Mr. Mthembu, thank you very much for your time. Gentlemen, for all of coming out today and being part of this discussion. Surely important. You all agree that relations amongst leaders are important. We need to participate. You're calling on your members to participate in the Moirana Commission. Thank you very much to you all for your discussion and insight this morning. Right, that is where we end our discussion or debate here in Durban on political killings. We hope that the leaders have brought quite a number of insight as well as possible solutions to this crisis that is facing the people of KwaZulu-Natal. So we leave it here in Durban and we hand things back to studio in Johannesburg.
All right, Ayanda, thank you so much for that beautiful discussion. As she said, I believe we all wait and see what comes out of the Moirani Commission of Inquiry into the killings in that province, which is KwaZulu-Natal. And of course, it was the question of the day here on Morning Live, what needs to be done to stop political killings in KwaZulu-Natal. Thank you so much for having sent through your tweets here at Morning Live SABC. Well, just before we say goodbye, let's just take a glimpse of some of the tweets that you sent through. Mboniseni saying the ANC must end its factionalism, which I think is the main reason for this monotonous killing. Another one from Ernest. If President Jacob Zuma can step down, I think political killings will stop. It's only corruption that causes this bloodshed. Jarin Piana, self-interest is the center of all of these. They are killing each other for tenders, positions and money. There must be rotation of power in KwaZulu-Natal. Collins writing to us saying politicians in KwaZulu-Natal are the only ones who can come up with a solution. They know very well what is behind these killings. And I believe after the discussion, Collins, you got your answer there. Crocodile Ali Mpopo saying only education can. Most members of ANC are not educated, and that is the cause of killings and murdering each other. Matthews Maputi, ANC leaders in the province must fight corruption and stop endorsing it. Police must also do their job and put perpetrators behind bars. Another one again from Humphrey Nyakura. The problem is that the big wigs are protecting the hitmen. The top leaders should rein in their killers. Chinchakuluva, corruption and patronage, free leadership will solve the problem, according to him. All right, that was the last one. Thank you so much for having sent through your tweets, but most importantly, thank you so much for having watched Morning Live.